Hey guys, thanks for joining me. My name's Chris. This project, well, I think this was a failure, and I'm going to describe why here in this video. So if you want to see how this mallet came together, stick around. Let's go. Well, let's talk about failure just for a second. What is failure? Is it the undesired result after completing something? Is it absolutely, not accomplishing a goal? It could be defined as many things. This technically is not necessarily a failure because it can be used for what it's going to be used for, which is, forcing things into submission, which is what mallets do. But this project to me, since it was my first one, failure was definitely an option. And in pretty much every project you're going to find that failure is an option. And sometimes you have things that help you along the way, and you're going to see that this kind of worked, but it kind of didn't all at the same time. Definitely could have done it better, but I wanted to share my experience with you. So without further ado, let's get into this. I'm starting out with basically a 4x4 piece of oak that I thought was in pretty decent shape. Turned out not to be, but let's get right into this build. Let's go. So we're going to start this project off like I do most lathe projects, where if I'm turning a piece of square material, I like to go ahead and trim it down to as round of a shape as possible. Doing that on the table saw by turning the blade at 45 degrees and then chopping off all four corners. Then I take it to the lathe, and we're just going to kind of work our way through this project. There's no real rhyme or reason. I just kind of have an idea in my head. I'm going to take the entire piece. We're going to make the mallet out of one piece of stock here, and everything seems to be going pretty well. I've turned the handle, I've turned the tenon, and as you can see, that big chunk there is going to be left for the mallet head. All right, all seems to be going pretty well here, but the last pass on the handle, my goodness, a big old chunk came out. Reason being, this piece of oak is just not the best. It has voids and cracks all throughout, which I didn't realize before turning it. As I'm kind of exposing some of this wood, I'm realizing it's got a ton of imperfections. At this point, I'm just taking some thick CA glue and activator and a little bit of hand pressure, and it looks like it's holding pretty well. So we're going to turn it back up. We're going to go ahead and put some sandpaper to it. I realized the sandpaper needs some help, so we introduced the lathe tools back to it, and guess what? Held up really well. Really like that CA glue. It's a really strong bond when you need it. Now, back to some final sanding. We got this thing turning back on the lathe. I've sanded this from the grits from 150 up to 400. A little bit of mineral spirits, kind of clean up the dust. And again, I'm just using a Scotch-Brite pad. And of course, every once in a while, I use some old wood chips to kind of burnish the surface to kind of give it a nice feel. I realize there's a ton of voids in this thing, and I'm going to use Starbond's black medium CA glue here. It's going to fill the voids up and kind of give it a little bit of visual interest with those black lines and kind of a cool little texture. A little CA glue and activator is all you do here. Sand it down, realizing I put a little bit too much on, and it turns well with the lathe tools as well. The carbide just goes right through it, and it leaves a really nice finish. So this turns out to be maybe something that's going to work. All right, I'm gonna bring you in here just to show you a couple things. You're gonna see that I'm using this stuff right here. It's a black CA glue by Starbond, essentially a black super glue, but it comes with an activator, and as you see me spraying it on there in the previous shot, it basically was trimmed up and sanded down to something like this. Now what this does is this stuff really stabilizes the wood as well, but it also adds a pretty cool decorative element that I'm gonna continue into the actual head itself. And also, I got good news about this stuff. Starbond's been an affiliate of mine for quite a while, and you guys have always been able to save 10% with a coupon code, but now that savings is even more. So 15% is now what you could save. I'm gonna put a link down below, starbond.com. Use the code GLIMPSE15, and you will save 15% on this awesome stuff. So, all right, back to this. All right, so with the lathe portion complete, we're going to remove this piece and we're going to take it inside to the bandsaw and free the pieces, essentially. I've cut the tailstock piece off of the mallet head and then the tenon and the handle off of the other side of the mallet head as well. We're going to sand down a little chamfer on the disc sander here on that tenon to receive, or actually this hole I'm going to drill is going to receive that tenon. As it turns out though, this Forstner bit is just a little bit bigger than what I thought, or my caliper measurements weren't quite exactly spot on. So it's not exactly a snug fit. It's there, but it could come out pretty easily. So we're gonna mix up some 2-part epoxy from TotalBoat and some black diamond pigments, continuing on with that black theme that we got with the CA glue earlier. And we're gonna tape this mallet off and we're gonna hold it in place overnight. And of course, I've created just a big mess for myself. I just didn't think about the proper way to do this or join these two things together. You know, this is what I'm talking about. Failure can also be just a bonehead decision that you make. You know, I mean, I'm working my way through it, but it's taken me way more time than expected. And at this point, I'm a little aggravated that I just didn't think about how to join these two pieces together properly. But either way, I'm going to persevere and get through it. As you can see, we're moving on to some hand sanding. And at this point, I'm taking some blue tape and I'm going to cover up just one of the mallet heads, just one side, and you're going to find out a little bit later, if you haven't already, what that's going to be for. At this point, we're going to move it over to a board that I have one screw coming up. I've got a hole in the mallet handle. As you see, I'm just going to screw it in there, and now it's time to apply 3 coats of matte spray lacquer finish. All right, with the mallet pretty much finished, I decided that maybe I want some versatility in this thing. So I want one side to be able to be the wooden mallet, very traditional, but the other side, I want a little bit of a softer side, right? We're calling it Sears, okay? Anyway, I'm gonna put a piece of leather on this. As you can see, it's not the most glamorous cut, but you know, we got it done, and yeah, that's what it looks like. And here's how I did it. So I don't have any contact adhesive on hand, but I do have some spray adhesive, which essentially is, I believe, molecularly the same thing. So in order to keep that spray adhesive at bay, I've cut the bottom of a standard red party cup out, and I'm gonna use that as kind of like a funnel to spray that glue in. Right here, you're gonna see me just really flooding the surface of the back of the leather with the spray adhesive, and then hopefully this is what it's gonna work. I mean, I think it's gonna work. Yeah, but you know, it didn't get the coverage I needed on the edges, so at this point I'm just going to kind of flood the surface of a foam brush, and I'm going to brush the adhesive on the mallet itself. We're going to wait about 5 to 10 minutes and let that kind of tacky up, and then I'm going to put a clamp to it, introduce the mallet to the side that had the blue tape on it, take a cut off, and then just one simple clamp to keep it clamped overnight, and we'll see how it turns out. So it's the next day, and I'm going to undo it, and as you can see, yeah. There you go. Let's leave it at that. No, I'm just kidding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a utility blade and I'm just going to run it around each time, making a few passes, kind of making an indentation, coming back on the other side. This leather is pretty thick, and we got it off there, no problem. But then I'm going to take my random orbit sander and I'm going to go ahead and, you know, chamfer the edges just a little bit. I am taking some of the finish off of that, so I've got to do a little bit of leg work again. I guess you can call this a little bit of a failure too, where I just didn't think about this. So, yeah, but the leather was going to be an afterthought. So we masked up the leather with some blue tape and we reapply the finish, and it's looking pretty good. Undo the tape. But the leather at this point is in its raw state. Now, they make certain oils for leather, but all I have on hand is boiled linseed oil, so I'm going to use some of that. And I think that's going to work just fine. So this project was something about halfway through I just did not want to finish. However, I figured, you know, don't give up. Just go do it, and you'll end up with something that you can either laugh at or you can use, or it may be better than expected. And that kind of happened at this point. I'm not really truly happy with the aesthetics of it, but I love the feel of it, and I love the versatility of the leather and the wood. So I figured, hey, why not? As it turns out, turned out okay. Well, there you have it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for this project. This was a failure in my mind, but it actually turned out not to be too bad. If I was going to do something different, I would not put this collar in here. I would not put the differentiation of the two. I would have simply just taken the handle all the way into the actual tenon, probably gone through and wedged it in place. But you know what? Hindsight's 20/20, and this is for my first one, not too bad. Also, I want to thank my Patreon supporters. You guys are always down in the description, and much appreciation is for you guys. And hopefully I'm not spoiling anything, but this hat here will never be sold. It will never be given out to anyone other than people on Patreon. This was a Christmas gift to all you guys this year. And hopefully you've already gotten it and opened it, and I'm very appreciative of your support. And if you want to help support the channel and get kind of cool gifts like this, and there's also tier rewards as well, I encourage you to check it out, give it a look. And again, no pressure, but support is always appreciated. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. My name's Chris. This has been A Glimpse Inside, and I'll see you on that next project. Take care.